As I said at the top of the show, the state treasurer has big responsibilities for the state's finances, and we are honored to have him on the show today. Dale Folwell, state treasurer, welcome back to Education Matters.
Thank you for having me, Keith.
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned up front that all the various things that are in your purview as state treasurer that really have a direct impact on education. And the first one I kind of wanted to tease out a little bit is on the issue of what I mentioned about Senator Brown's proposal and Speaker Moore. How we build schools. The state of North Carolina, the last time we had a statewide school bond bill was 1996. There are now, I guess we could call them two competing proposals. There's a House version that is another bond bill, 1.9, and then Senator Brown and his colleagues call it as sort of, they're creating a new fund, probably managed by your office, but it would, to put money in every year to sort of build up and pay as you go, as they're calling. So I guess my first question to you is, have you examined both of these proposals? Do you have thoughts on, from a financial, a perspective, what you think is best for North Carolina?
Well, as the keeper of the public purse, our responsibility is to make sure that we're not spending beyond the state's ability to spend. Public school construction is a very important function, but it's generally, for most of our lives, has been a function of the local system. The local systems build the schools, and then the state obviously operates them going forward. So there's a couple of things about what you've said in your opening question. Number one is that the proposals that are on the table now are within the debt affordability of North Carolina. We just signed off on our debt affordability study. We submitted that to the General Assembly and the governor. And so, number one, it's within that limit, which obviously that's very positive.
So if we wanted to do it, if our leaders wanted, they could do it.
That's right. And
it would be fine from just risk credit.
But when it comes to bonds, this is so important because words matter. Your viewers don't wake up thinking about AAA bond ratings and unfunded liabilities and life expectancies and all these other things that may go into these issues about retirement, health care, and school construction. They wake up thinking about, how we're going to best educate our kids or have a safe streets or, pave our roads, all the other core functions of state government. All this relates back to what we do at the Treasurer's office. So as far as school construction is concerned, there's a lot of criteria. I was on the school board in Winston-Salem for 8 years.
That's right, yeah.
I'm also on the State Board of Education as the treasurer, as well as the Community College Board. So all this is vitally important to me, not only as a taxpayer and a citizen, but as the state treasurer. So very quickly, there's other things that I have that are very important. Number one is that the lottery. I was on the floor of the House as a member when the lottery was passed, and the question I get more often across this state, as I'm sure you do,
all the time,
is that I thought the lottery was going to take care of this.
Right.
Well, the fact is, when the lottery was passed, 40% of the lottery profit was supposed to go to public school construction. That hasn't happened over the last several years. If that money had not been supplanted, then we would have hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in the bank, not to borrow money, but actually in the bank to pay for public school construction.
And I have to point, from what I understand, that's been a fairly bipartisan rating of the lottery funds. This is not something just happened in the last few years.
But as the judge once told us 20 years ago, sometimes when you hit rock bottom, there's only two ways to go, sideways or straight up. So they are making the move toward replenishing that money, which is very positive. Number two, anytime we do public school construction, I hope the General Assembly will think about not penalizing those communities who have been investing in public school construction for the last many years, not waiting for the state to do something. This is not a dispersion about a rich county, poor county, urban, or rural. This is just talking about the school systems that have gone to their voters and asked them to approve bonds. They should get the same amount of proceeds from any bond referenda as anyone else does, and they can just use that money to pay off their debt because they've been doing all they can do all along.
Well, that's a good point. But you mentioned the other counties. Our rural counties, our poorer counties, they don't have the same sort of tax base. So sure, that's part of why we have this big $8 billion gap, is because they haven't been able to do anything, and they really do need a little extra help from the state.
And I agree with you 100%. And all that has to be factored in. We have some counties in North Carolina that the total amount of students from the kindergarten to the 12th grade is equal to an elementary school that's just a few blocks from where we're sitting right now. The total amount of students. So all this needs to be looked at. Secondly, we need to build schools that are permanent. You know, just like your viewers would build their house, probably with brick, with a roof that has a pitch on it so the water has somewhere to run off.
Right.
It's just smart, common sense things. But then something else which I've worked on for a great number of years is the sales tax refund.
Right.
Your viewers, as educated as they are, would be shocked to know that the public school districts in North Carolina do not receive a sales tax refund. We have race car teams that receive a sales tax refund. We have major hospital conglomerates that have billions and billions of dollars that receive a sales tax refund. We have private schools that receive a sales tax refund. The counties receive a sales tax refund, but the school districts in North Carolina do not.
So that's where when state school districts buy paper and supplies and things for their schools, they're paying full sales tax, state sales tax,
Right.
and like I know I run a nonprofit. We get a sales tax refund
Sure.
being a nonprofit, and which is helpful.
Right, as well as your church, your Boy Scouts,
Sure.
Girl Scouts, and all these other issues.
Yeah,
I mean, the public schools of North Carolina deserve a clean way of being entitled to a sales tax refund. This is especially important for rural North Carolina. In urban North Carolina, there's normally enough tax base to where when the Wake County or Forsyth County wants to build a school, they transfer the land to the county builds the school, the county gets all the sales tax refund because it's available to them, and then once the school builds, it goes back to the state. I mean, to the school system. We just need to clean all of this up, and the sales tax refund would produce about $70 million a year if it's all calculated. Right. And it's been a few years since I looked at these numbers, but at the end of the day, in addition to the tweaks about rural North Carolina, the money needs to follow the child. All this needs to be upfront, and if in the event we go to the voters and ask them, or we issue a bond, we need to go to the voters and ask them their permission. And we need to do it in a clear way. Your viewers already know over the last 3 years, we had a Connect NC bond. Well, Connect sounds like roads. The Connect NC bond had nothing to do with roads. And then now we've had a Build NC program last year. You'd think Build NC had something to do with public school construction. Right. It has everything to do with roads. So we need to clean this up, go to the voters if a bond needs to be issued, and ask their permission.
All right, we're going to be running on short on time. There's a couple of things. There's so much great information. A couple of things I want to ask you about. One is, I do want to pull up, there's a chart we're going to show on the screen that does show about what our debt is, and I think it all factors into sort of what the state spends money on. I mean, it probably might surprise viewers when they see this, if they can read it on the screen. You know, half of our sort of outstanding debt is really higher ed and college because, again, what we know that most of this money is from the state and local. But I want to ask you about pension funding. I've seen some, you've kind of put out some calls that we've got some, what you consider some, what you would say unfunded liabilities in our pension. Is this a looming crisis?
Yes, this is happening now, not because I'm the treasurer of North Carolina. This is not emotional, it's not political, this is mathematical. And the fact is that the state pension plan, even though it's one of the 5 best funded in the United States, our retirees from the state pension plan, they can't buy groceries at Harris Teeter or pay their Duke Power bill with relativity. They have to use cash.
Right.
So the pension plan, even though it's one of the 5 best funded, has not achieved its assumed rate of return on average for 21 years. And it's probably not going to achieve it going forward. The reason your viewers should care about this is that this is the single biggest expense of the General Assembly or any local government, is the amount of money they send us for the pension plan. This year it's going to be 13% of payroll. 13% of payroll just for the pension plan. So the pension plan, even though it's one of the safest, has a lot of headwinds to it. And then the health plan, according to Pew Research, is one of the most insolvent health plans in the United States.
So we just need to keep investing in those. It sounds like what you're saying. We've got to look at sort of the long term, and we are, unfortunately, Dale, we are out of time in this segment. It always goes by so fast. We'll have to have you back on so we can dig in a little bit more about pension and state health plan too.
Well, thank you, because education matters.
There you go. Yeah. He's got it down. Thank you so much for joining us. When we come back, we're going to be joined by an NC State professor who wants to be state superintendent of public instruction. But before we go to break, see if you can answer this question. In 2008-2009, more than 30,000 teacher assistants were employed in North Carolina public schools. How many were employed in the 2017-2018 school year?
Education Matters is brought to you each week in part by Paragon Bank, serving others, enriching lives.